Hello again, brothers and sisters. I'm Albert Baldeo, the elected district leader of Little Guyana in Richmond Hill, in Queens, New York, where this is the largest concentration of Guyanese living outside of Guyana, the largest diaspora in the world. And this has been a very popular topic. And like I said yesterday, it has gripped our community. There have been major developments in this case, and I would be remiss if I did not bring an update to you on what I feel or my assessment of the present situation relating to the tragic and sad demise of a young Guyanese girl, Adrianna Younge, cut down in the flower of her youth. There is no more suffering and no more sadness than that to experience the loss of a child. And at the age of 11, she will never be able to walk down the aisle, graduate, or do so many great things in life that her life has been taken away from her. From the inception, we have sympathized with the family. We have sympathized with the many relatives there of Adrianna Younge. We feel your pain. We are upset also, but we ask you to keep the strength and the hope that things will get better and that things can improve to make sure that you find peace, justice, and harmony in your lives. Like I said, I did speak yesterday concerning this case. There was not a post-mortem examination that was done. I spoke in my capacity as a former senior state counsel, magistrate, police legal advisor, and special prosecutor that did dozens of murder cases and many other criminal cases in Guyana. The youngest prosecutor, the youngest lawyer, the youngest magistrate to be appointed in Guyana's history, special state counsel who brought many cases and got very good, very great results, especially those who were guilty. However, I need to address this particular case. I understand it's a very pressing and sad moment. People are looking for a conclusion, and they're looking. Well, my first appeal to all Guyanese is to stop the rioting, stop the race baiting, stop the politicking. Stop using Adrianna Younge's death for political gain. That will take us nowhere. That will only exacerbate the wounds that have been created amongst the 6 races of Guyana. And at this stage of our development, at this stage in our history, at this point in time, we don't need that. That will get us nowhere, and it's not productive. It's not the right thing to do. It will cause curfews to be imposed, and rightly so, by the president, if he feels that there's wanton mayhem and wanton destruction and this sort of looting and sorts of crimes that are being committed. Looters, rioters, race baiters, race mongers, violence, people who have no interest in seeing justice or sympathy in this case, except to hurt others and except to stir the pot, to say, well, this race is against this race, or this is a racial this, or whatever it is. So let's get to that first thing, Guyanese. You must unite. My brothers and sisters, you must unite. You must follow what I consider to be the great statement of the father of the deceased child, Adrianna Younge. Mr. Younge said that his daughter loved peace, and she would not want to be part of any kind of mayhem and looting and burning of schools and the throwing of acid that has occurred following Adrianna Younge's death. That all this animosity and all this rising up and all this hate mongering and all this racist stuff has no part in Guyana. And I agree with him. Because how will that help the family? How will that help the family if compensation is due to them for negligence or whatever crimes may be committed or whatever acts were done that's sound in tort or in the criminal law. That is in civil liability or criminal liability. That does not help but to exacerbate, and you're feeding into an area that can only cause Guyana great harm. If you lived in America like us, you would unite, Guyanese brothers and sisters, because your common enemy is not yourself, but a system of systemic and institutional suppression that all of us have to fight here. You may not know about it, but if you come to live in America, you will feel this systemic oppression, the granite ceiling that you can't go up before, the injustice, the marginalization. You will recognize that as brothers and sisters in Guyana, we need to love each other, we need to respect each other, we need to hold hands together, we need to be each brothers and sisters keeper, and we have to continue the great Guyanese unity that we know is very, very possible, but which from time to time is exploited by politicians and by race baiters and people who want to get political mileage out of these happenings. So let's get straight to the point here why I made this video today. My previous letters that were published in Established News and in Kaishore News and others press was done before there was a postmortem report, before there was a pathological and forensic explanation of how Adrianna Younge died. And it must be taken subject to that. Now, the pathologist report, which was done by 3 distinguished and highly respected pathologists, have said the following. And as a former prosecutor, as a person with legal training, as a person who's done a lot of these cases, I want to dwell on this very clearly, because this is a very cogent point. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where decisions are made. This is where indictments fall or may not be indicted because based on this evidence. The 3 pathologists, in their esteemed scientific and medical knowledge, have said the following. 1, there were no inflicted wounds or broken bones. That is, there was no inflicted wounds or broken bones when they examined the body. 2, there was no evidence of sexual assault. No evidence of sexual assault. 3, the discoloration of skin is consistent with water damage. The discoloration of skin is consistent with water damage or injuries. Very important point. And the time of death could not have been ascertained. That is the only remaining issue in this case that will make a final decision of whether to prosecute or not, in my humble opinion. But as it is, when foul play is ruled out, when broken bones are not there, when inflicted wounds are not there, when there's no evidence of sexual assault, and that the discoloration of the skin was not due to malicious acts, but by consistent with water damage, I can tell you as a prosecutor who took these cases to the highest level, that that case has not reached the criminal standard of prosecution. It has not reached the basis for an indictment right so far. It is a tragedy. It is a grave accident. It is a heinous event. It is a most sympathetic affair. It is very painful to say this and to establish this. But as legally trained people, we have to accept the facts and go where the law and the evidence takes us. And right now it's taken us to civil remedies or civil actions rather than criminal actions. Instead of murder, it's taken us to other areas of the law which should continue to be investigated, especially the time of death. But I can tell you, the investigation must continue before a coroner or an inquest before a magistrate, or the file must still be sent to the DPP to advise on it. But this pathological report, this forensic report, settles a lot of issues that this may not be a crime. Unfortunately, as it may sound, as terrible as I may sound, it is coming from my heart as a former prosecutor, as one who has done dozens of these cases in Guyana, and is rated and has been esteemed by judges to be one of the best prosecutors. Justice Aubrey Bishop and many other judges, Justice Bernard, Justice Prempasad, they all complimented me for my work as a prosecutor. So I'm not coming from a place of idleness or of idle talk. I'm coming from a place who did this for 5 years and went up against the best in Guyana and never backed down from a case. But if I were to take a case like this where you got 3 pathologists, well-respected, saying no inflicted wounds or broken bones, no evidence of sexual assault, discoloration of skin is consistent with water damage, and only the time of death has not been established, the cause of death. You see, in law, you have 2 things. The mens rea, this is Latin I'm speaking now. The mens rea is the requirement to have the mental capacity, the malice aforethought to commit a crime, to commit murder, manslaughter, robbery, all these things, rape, what have you. That's the mens rea, the mental requirement. Then there's the actus reus. That's a Latin for the actual act. The actus reus is the very crime that connects a person, an accused, to that crime. The problem we have here is the evidence does not lead to a crime so far. I am not saying it may not, but it is highly unlikely at this point in time, given these findings of the experts. And these are not lay people. These are experts. And I'm not saying this to make anybody angry or anybody bitter or anybody throw aspersions on me. Yesterday, I was leaning to the side because of the reports coming out of Guyana. Having now seen the forensic report, I'm not small-minded enough. I'm big-hearted enough to come here and tell you that no crime may have been committed. May have been committed. There's still a possibility when you test the water with the pool, with the water found in her, but at the end of this case, at the end of the investigation, murder seems to have been ruled out. Murder seems to have been ruled out. With no inflicted wounds, broken bones, evidence of sexual assault, no evidence of sexual assault. And discoloration, it takes away from the actus reus and the mens rea. That is, from the act, there may not be a criminal act here. The actus reus cannot be proven to be murder in this case. Respectfully. Unless there's some other change in the case, and I hope the investigations continue and bring it to a logical conclusion. But the forensic report, not by one person, not by 2 lay people, not by only the family had their choice of pathologists, given a post-mortem report in tandem, in combination with these other forensic specialists that are internationally renowned. And they said it's only the time of death needs to be established. So we have a dead body. We have a dead person, deceased. But they're saying that there's no foul play here. That this was an act that she drowned. Nobody forced her to or drowned her. She drowned on her own. What a terrible accident. But yet, there's so many other angles of this case and other stuff, like why burn the hotel if she was drowned by the owners or the managers of that hotel? Why did the police take so long to issue a report? Why did they send the family out? Why did they give a false report that she had left in a vehicle? Why all of this is taken away from the integrity and credibility of their investigation? So that brings us to another point. What resources and what options does Adrianna Younge's family, who have gone through this terrible tragedy, what options do they have? Inasmuch as they may not have options in the criminal law, they would have options thinking aloud. And I'm not done full research in it. I've not gotten all the evidence yet. But thinking aloud and going through with this, I don't want to leave them with no hope. I don't want them to sink hopelessly into the mire of despair. Even on our t-shirt, she has hope, hope, hope. And as a former prosecutor, as a legally trained person, there was negligence by the police force here. Negligence. Negligence in allowing such time to pass that even the coroners cannot say what was the time of death because the body had been decomposed. That is negligence. They must pay for their mistakes. The very act of lying to the public and the media and the relatives that the child had left in a car is obstruction of justice and a misprison of a possible crime. That does not go unpunished. The real crime may not have been committed of murder, but there are other crimes of tampering with a corpse. How long was this corpse floating, being pushed around in the hotel, floating around and stuff like that? Why was there no lifeguard? Why was there no one at the pool to ensure safety? Why, if you're charging a fee to go into that pool to swim, that you don't spend money to have someone to rescue and keep an eye on the pool? Lifeguards law must be passed in Guyana that all pools that are there for public use and charges must have safety precautions, such as hiring a lifeguard to keep safe, to keep watch on those who can swim or those who are swimming. Adrianna Younge, from her father and her mother, could swim. And that is why this case is so difficult to bring as a murder case. She could swim and she drowned. Accidentally. Terribly. Painfully. But as lawyers and as people trained in the law, we've had to accept facts. You have to go where the facts and the law lead you. Especially if you're going to be a prosecutor or magistrate or a judicial officer. You cannot allow emotions. You cannot allow them say and hearsay and this body say to influence your assessment, your considered opinion based on the law and the facts. So, like I said, they may sound the negligence. We use that term in the legal field. The remedies may sound in negligence by the hotel owners, by the police, and other administrative violations that the police may have committed in failing to administer, to making proper reports, compiling proper events. When I was a prosecutor, the police had pocketbooks and crime books. They always had a pocketbook on them. And in that pocketbook, you had to record whatever is going on in your day's work. Police officers, pocketbooks, crime, station diaries also. And then you had to make a report in a station diary of that precinct. That was your duty and that was your obligation in law to the citizens of Guyana for being on the public payroll and being a police officer, tasked and granted the privilege of upholding the law. Now, there's been a lot of negatives and comments against the police force in this case. And some of it is justified. The actions of the police leave much to be desired. As a former police legal advisor and one who has worked with them in terms of bringing prosecutions and telling them, I'm sorry, you don't have the evidence here. I'm sorry, we have to send this to an inquest because we don't have evidence to charge, or go back and investigate, or go back and take the statements, or bring the witnesses and I need to interview them before I put them on the stand. I need to find out what happened here. I'm not here to rubber stamp you or whatever because you bring a file to me and said, proceed as charged. I will not sign that file unless I am sure, to the extent that I don't have any reasonable doubts, that that's the standard before you just sign an indictment or you bring an arraignment or you bring a charge, whatever it may be. But here now we have police officers, many of them there don't enter stuffs in their notebook. And that is why there should be an internal administrative procedure dictated by the Attorney General to the police force that each of you must compile that notebook. Time occurrence. Police officer's notebook. Little small black book like a diary. I was at the Tushan Hotel, or I was at Doubleday Hotel. I observed this and this. I observed people on the third floor. A fire started thereafter. Although I could not be sure who set the fire, that is only the exclusive area where management and staff are allowed access to the hotel. I was by this pool. The pool is not transparent. It is not visible at this point in time at 12 o'clock in the night or whatever. I took pictures in my phone of the pool. The pool was not, was opaque because you couldn't see right through to the bottom. This is all vital evidence that a defense lawyer worth his salt will call for in court. What notation did you make in your station diary? And in the interest of justice, a police officer has the duty to record crimes. He has a duty to record what happens. That happens here in America. You have a duty. They actually have body cameras that police officers must wear by law. Perhaps the time has come for Guyana to equip our police, all police officers, with video cameras. Because with the video cameras, you will have a record. You won't have, oh, this camera now work at the hotel, this camera in the hotel, they will stop work, this camera gone for service, this camera now work, this camera don't have battery. Rubbish! Because at the end of the day, the police officer has it on his vest, on his body camera. And the law is that the body camera must be turned on. And it has been very helpful in guilt or innocence. Because let's say a police officer stops someone on the roads of America and they come up to you in this brutal way, demanding this and demanding that, and don't have no reasonable cause to stop you and violate the law and a person's civil rights. That video camera captures all of that evidence. And it determines guilt. It determines foul play. It determines indiscretions of police officers. It leads to departmental charges. And it eventually results in dismissal from the police force and or proper indictments and charges to be sustained in a court of law, which does not violate American citizens' rights. Guyana should invest in police cameras. That is, they must wear them and they have a duty to record. That is what is missing here. We don't know the time of death. A police camera would have captured when she was last seen or whenever she last interacted, who she last interacted with, who the person who brought her to the hotel was with, what was that person, was she negligent and not abandoning the surveillance and protective custody of this child? Was she reckless? Whosoever contributed to this child being left alone, being left to die, being left to drown, and being left to lose our valuable life. These are all things that must be considered. These are all considerations that must help our police system, help our justice system in Guyana. In addition, instead of going to beg FBI and beg Scotland Yard, oh, we need you to come with some equipment. We need you to take forensic, pathology, DNA. We are better than that. We need to institute proper equipment. Because anytime you ask somebody for something, it will come at a cost. Let me repeat that. I've lived in America and I've gone into politics and I have major experience in these areas. Let me explain something to you. There is no free lunch. There is nothing like a free lunch. And you have to understand that. So that if you're going to ask folks around the world for help, and I'm not saying you can't do it now, do it now. But at the same time, develop your police force, develop the forensic equipment, develop the crime fighting techniques and science, the pathological, the forensic, and the scientific evidence, and the equipment you need. It's not very costly. Instead of you paying consultants so much of thousands of dollars in Washington, D.C. to spread propaganda and talk, stuff that doesn't exist, get real life, real scientific stuff. Put the money there, like how you put it in healthcare. You must have all the equipment, X-rays, CAT scan, all the things here you must have in Guyana also. Don't wait for a suitcase to come from Mount Sinai, and that is what Guyana has in its medical equipment and medical stock structure. We are better than that. You know that there's more money coming in to Guyana, and you must spend it for the people. because too many people are dying. There's too many question marks, and it makes me very angry. And it makes us, seeing us go with this handout and this begging bowl for forensic materials, for handouts, for food, for COVID, and this thing got to stop. We have resources. Use the resources to make Guyana a bigger and better place, a more professional place, where we can have better healthcare, better forensic equipment to fight crimes, and where we also can have better military equipment. When Venezuela sneezes, we must not be going to Washington and hold the begging bowl again. The bully threatened me again. We're frightened. You must have equipment and you must have the necessary means to defend yourself. We are better than that. We have resources. Build the defense force. Build the defense mechanism. Whilst you still keep ties with great countries like America and other countries that will help us fight Venezuela, it's also a wake-up call that you should empower the Guyana Defense Force. Have all Guyanese in there. Raise the salary. Show them how they can be patriotic. You need to get them involved in the system. You have to have people belong to Guyana. Patriotism. If leaders cannot emanate or effuse that sort of leadership in the police force, the defense force, to be more professional, then we are going nowhere as a developing country. We are going nowhere as a developing country. You know how many kids here in New York City and their parents have told me we're not going to Guyana for the holiday? Holiday coming up in May, the end of May. They are not coming to Guyana. They tell me they don't want to see Guyana. People who came out of Guyana, the violence, the blackouts, and these sorts of crimes that happen, where it goes and becomes a problem, and the riots and the burning and so forth. So I'm calling on all Guyanese, get your act together. Get your act together from top to bottom. Look at me. I'm a proud Guyanese. I'm also a proud American. I'm also a patriotic citizen and an elected district leader. The people elected me to be their voice. Many times they couldn't speak, I speak for them. Unless you make Guyana safer and more industrialized and more computerized and more developed with these equipments I'm telling you about, Guyana is not going to be a place where people want to come and invest, where people want to come and live, where people want to come on vacation. They will go and spend their money on the tourism industries of other countries. And I'm telling you that because that is what people have told me here in Little Guyana, the largest diaspora out of Guyana. And appreciate what I'm telling you, because we didn't just have a sort of like you pick up diamonds here or gold or manna drops from the sky. It's a country where every expatriate Guyanese and Guyanese American has worked 3 and 4 jobs and worked his butt off to become successful, to send those barrels back to you, to make those calls to Washington, D.C. like I did whenever Venezuela raises its head, to the U.S. Secretary of State, to the President of America, and to the Black Caucus, and to congressmen, to ask them and become a nuisance and a confrontation to them. What are you doing to help the land of my birth? So I'm speaking from a position of having been in the trenches for Guyanese, having never forgotten Guyana, have never forgot to fight nor advocate for the rights and the privileges of the working class families I came from those who just had 1 meal per day to survive, those who never had a chance to grow to their full stature. Those are the people that I come from. And those are the people that I've always fought for. The working class, the masses. Those are who we still reap. That's why I make this video. I have better things to do with my time. Trust me. Many other things. But it's my duty as a district leader to convey to the forces that be and the powers that be in Guyana and the opposition that counseling, condoning, invigorating, and starting mobs and violence and fires and burning down and throwing acid and destroying schools and burning down people's buildings and causing people to lose their property that they worked so hard for, that is not kosher. That is the wrong thing to do. That is not the right thing. There's no way you can justify destruction of property and calls to war and calls to attack this race and that one and so forth. No. If you were in America and you came with that, they would dump you. Dump you right away and kick you out of their eyesight. You know why? Because over here, we never take anything for granted. Over here, we fight for everything. We don't have the luxury of doing those worthless acts and those vicious and malicious acts of destroying people's property, of exacerbating, of creating situations where you can loot people's used toilet bowls and dirty mattresses and so on. Just like how we don't have the time over here to engage in ballot fraud and electioneering, as that case shows, of trying to change the results of election. If you can't bring democracy and enforce democracy in your own country, if curfews have to be the order of the day, if the police force is not professional enough, then we got a big problem. We got a problem that will continue to be the cross, so to speak, to use a Guyanese term. We have a situation where there will always be an albatross on the back of Guyana as a developing country. We will stagnate. We will never rise. We can make how many videos we want saying how Guyana is a great place. But when people go there and they get the blackouts and they get the violence and they get the mob violence and they get the robberies and they got the police officer take a bribe on them all the time, following them around and you know, at every possible interception. And as a police legal advisor, I will tell you this. Not all police officers lack the vision or the professionalism. Not all. There's a small amount of police officers and cops in Guyana who are corrupt. A small percentage. And like the rotten apples in the proverbial barrel, we have to get rid of them. There's no fear or favor here. We need to restore trust and confidence in the Guyana police force. At least one thing we can learn from Adrianna Younge's case is that our justice system, our police process of investigations, protection, and public confidence and safety needs a lot of work. Who has got to be demoted? Who has got to be transferred? Who has got to be fired? Then so let it be. Because crime, public safety, is the most important aspect of humanity. Public safety is the number one concern of every plausible leader around the world. He has a duty to his constituents to keep his country safe. And whatever measures he has to take, if he has to fire police officers, if he has to indict them, if he has to send them their yellow card, get rid of them, then so be it. If there is need, when there's a conflict of interest for other police to be involved, then there's also good to build liaisons with Interpol to have those done. But not when there's every crime that we're supposed to have solved, that to have under control, that we cannot do this. That is a problem. Then we become, we lose the respect of people around the world. And that is too much for us. We can't afford that. Because there's many investors and many calls for investment in Guyana. So you can't be calling people to come and live in Guyana and invest when you cannot make Guyana safe. That is not going to work. You have to genuinely make Guyana safe and make Guyana prosperous. Make Guyana the talk of the world. That here is a country that's on the rise. This is a country that's economy is blooming. This is a country that can match its resources and its prosperity with any other in the world proportionally. Now, we can't be calling, and I hear a lot of people comparing Guyana to Dubai. No, we are very far away from that. And we've got to be honest with ourselves. Dubai must not exist in a figment of your imagination in your mind. It must actually bear some resemblance to reality. And that is where you've got to do the work. If a U.S. Secretary of State comes and travels on a road that costs so many millions by some foreign company to do up like this, like happened to Mark Rubio on the road, the Heroes Highway, I think it was, and is then is afraid of concessions, that is very bad for Guyana. Terrible. That puts us on the back foot right away, defensive. Because we look small, we look bad, we look like we don't really look into the work of our contractors. We allow them to get big contracts from the government, and they don't give back in quality and in their duty. They make a lot of money from these contracts. The least they can do is to fulfill the requirements of the contract that are funded by the public dollars given out to them. The least they can do is do their jobs. Don't be so barefaced that they milk all this money and all these $1 million contracts and they can't even do the job, and then they're done. You got to do it back again. No, that is not going to work. We need to lift our standards. We need to up our game. If we don't do that in Guyana as a nation, we will surely be stagnated. And I wouldn't go to the extent to say we will fail, but that we will not live up to our true potential. And that is where our hearts and soul is, to see that Guyana live to its true potential. Because don't think you can come to America here and just rise, and the road to prosperity in America is fraught with danger and obstacles that are beyond many of you. It is not a bed of roses. It is not an easy country to rise. You are gifted and blessed to be in a country with great natural resources such as Guyana. You need to develop it. You need to appreciate and thank God every morning you get up that I live in this great land where there's no snow and no racism and no marginalization and no violation of civil liberties and all these things that are going on, and where the cost of living is going through the roof. Be thankful for what you have. And therefore, I've brought an analysis of this case. I am glad that the forensics have shown that this was not foul play, or it's leading strongly towards that. It does, however, not rule out civil actions against many people, the hotel owners, the police, whatever may be there, that shows that they did not, or they lied in sending away folks and curtailing the investigation, obstruction of justice, and doing all of these things, and probably in a way might have contributed to her not getting proper medical care. I'm just thinking out loud from my legal mind. But I think finally it boils down to the fact that if she did not die from any injuries and I want to quote because I don't like people misquoting me, no inflicted wounds or broken bones, no evidence of sexual assault, discoloration of skin consistent with water damage, only time of death is left out. And if we were to establish the time of death, it is leading in a direction, in all fairness, and in accordance with the legal justice system, that this may not be a crime. Sad to say, but it may not be the crime of murder. It may be a lesser crime, perhaps tampering with a corpse, perhaps some other crime of obstruction of justice, some other lesser crime. But there's no foul play, and I'm thinking aloud now, there's no rape or attempted rape. The scientific and expert evidence is leaning away from murder and from a malicious act. Actus reus is not there. Actus non facit rea nisi mens sit rea. That's Latin for that the act and the intent must concur to prove a crime. And I'm going back to 1977 in Stanley Moore's law class at LLB Part 1, Bachelor of Laws, at the University of Ghana, where they only did Part 1 there, and then we had to move to the University of the West Indies. And I remember that Latin phrase, actus non facit reum nisi mens sit rea. The act and the mental requirement must concur for there to be a crime. If the act does not have the mental intent, as seems to have happened here, because you've negated all of these other malicious and malice aforethought, then it cannot be a crime. But I would urge an inquest be held. First of all, let's deal with the facts. The investigation must be completed. All the forensic evidence, like the water in the child's Adrianna Younge body and the water in the pool, must also be sorted out. If that is the water from the pool that she has in her system, or was that water that somebody forced her to drink, or whatever it is. But remember, there's no poisoning. So that must be seen in context. There must be completion of this investigation with all the other forensic tests that have been sent abroad because we don't have the equipment in Guyana. Whilst that is being done, you must remain calm. You must take an idea and take comfort, take solace from the fact that she was not murdered. She drowned. Take solace from that. It will help you in healing. That foul play is almost being ruled out. And there's no time for us to behave like ignorant folks or vicious folks or behave like criminals and go and break and brock and fire and burn and loot and steal. No. We have to be more mature. The Father has called for peace, and God bless him for doing that. He's a hero for Guyana. Adrianna Younge's father is a hero for calling for that. With such maturity, to see the light and to say, you know what? I don't want no violence. My daughter doesn't like violence. And for appreciating, in some measure, what the forensics are telling him and guiding him. That is the word guide. The forensics must guide us to a reasonable and realistic conclusion that this was not a foul act. You must not be afraid to accept the truth. Many times I've had to accept the truth. We've had to accept reality. It's a part of being a human being and living this life. And trust me, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do, whether good or bad. And at this point in time, there must be peace, silence, solidarity, and let us be a wake-up call to help our investigative and law enforcement systems, our justice systems, our forensic systems, our healthcare system, and the way that these issues are ventilated, and also how we can prevent this from happening again. We don't need no big commission of inquiry and the commission of this and commission of that. We as Guyanese and we as Guyanese Americans who stand with you in solidarity and bear your pain, advise you to come together. 6 races under God. The land of many waters with 6 races united. Onward, upward, may we ever go. I last said those words in 1990 or so when I left Guyana. Onward, upward, may we ever go together. United in faith, united in strength, united in love, and united in understanding that we are all Guyanese, whatever race or color or religion or creed or whatever we have that differs from the other person. We are all one. And especially under the eyes of God, whatever religion you may follow or choose not to follow, you must respect your fellow human beings, respect the law, preserve your country, be thankful for what you have, and may God bless you all. So let's move together forward. Onward, upward, may we ever go. And I hear you guys talking about one Guyana and one Guyana. We can't preach that over here in a sense it will get us anywhere. No. We have to come off and build brick by brick. Guyana currency is not valuable over here. We don't have any system here that helps us. I never got elected to office because I was born in Guyana or because I was a Guyana scholar or I've distinguished myself from any Queen's College. No. Every effort and every movement that I made and every history I created and every boundary that I crossed and every granite ceiling that I smashed, not wood ceiling as in Guyana and zinc ceiling. We have granite ceilings over here. It came from my heart, it came from hard work, and it came from concern. Sometimes I have fallen because I was a victim of the system. I was too independent. Never gave in. Always independent. Always fought for the good and for the right things. Like Rosa Parks. Like so many others, John Lewis. Like Gandhi, Mandela, all these great and one of Martin Luther King. These are the people who set the examples. Gandhi is right behind me there. Gandhi, and that's Martin Luther King. They're the people who teach us how to fight and what knowledge to have. But I can tell you that I speak from a place where my heart is still in Guyana. But that does not help me in my fight here in America. And if Venezuela were to say, oh, we're going to invade Guyana because of this curfew, you're making yourselves as a country vulnerable to attack. If Guyana is not united, and if Guyana continues to go down the road of looting, burning, and trampling each other, and making up stories, and making fights, and bitching at each other, then Maduro is looking on. He sees that as a moment to pounce. He sees that as a moment where a country divided cannot stand. Think about that. Guyana has international enemies worse than what you guys are fighting for there in Guyana. And if he decides to pounce a country that is disarray, that has curfew laws, that has this kinds of bickering, that has this animosity of its citizens not united, then you Guyanese are doing themselves a great disservice. Because united we stand, divided we fall. United we stand as a country, divided we fall. So this country needs to heal. Guyana needs to come together very, very rapidly, very quickly. You need to be each brothers and sisters keeper. You have to await the results of this investigation and have faith in it now. It's going to international hands. And so far, thank God, it has shown that there was that she died by drowning. A terrible tragedy, but a tragedy nonetheless. And a most heinous outcome. A most hurtful. My heart bleeds for Adrianna Younge and her family and all Guyanese. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. Check my video yesterday given when I spoke about it. Before the forensic pathologist report came out. I haven't seen that you must be big enough and man enough and legal enough and responsible enough as a leader to put it in context. And the context I'm putting into is captured in this video. It is not leading towards criminal liability, but perhaps there may be civil or tortious liability, which will sound in monetary awards for the Younge family. There will still be some compensation that they will get. But I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to preempt it, but I want to let them know that this is the direction in which you may want to focus on in terms of getting justice for her death and for all the malfeasances of the Guyanese police force and other entities that occurred at that Locust & Co. That is at the hotel. And therefore, we have to come together and be united and do it very fast. Elections are approaching. This is not a way of fighting elections. This is not a way of gaining mileage. If you want to run a political campaign, then you run and go door to door like we do over here. We go and knock on doors, tell people what you can do, debate the other person. That's what we have to do. That's how we became elected. That's how I created records here. That's how I created history. That's how I blazed a trail which defines us as a people, that helped us to get little Guyana here, that put us on the map. That was due to me. Single-handedly believing in justice and empowerment and doing what I had to do and spending my own money. So appreciate how different it is in other countries and in other systems. We had no godfathers here. There was no PPP, Janet Jagan or Cherry Jagan or Donald Ramata or anybody give us anything or could give us anything. No, we had to do that on our own. I had to do that on my own. As district leader and as a person that fought for the people. I had to beat Italians, Jews, Irish, folks here born here generations ago to become a district leader, to become the person who almost won a state senate seat, who was declared a winner and then was cheated the next day. It's all there in the public records. Go and research it. Don't only look for the way, oh, this man did this, they said this about this. No, no, no. Look at the person in the fullness of its magnitude. Then you make your judgments and ask why certain things happened to fighters in the past. Fighters like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, John Lewis, all these great fighters who were put in jail and or exploited or who they tried to get rid of. Educate yourselves on the system. What can happen to people when they dare to fight the status quo? And don't think that any of you can come here and do that. No, nothing was ever handed, nothing was ever requested, and nothing was ever passed on to us. I could not go to voters and said, well, you know, we belong to this party, or this body was my godfather. No, that has no currency here. So I'm telling you that you're living in a beautiful land, you're living in a place where you should appreciate the democracy, appreciate what God has given you, not only in terms of weather, but in terms of resources, in terms of new beginnings, and work with what you have. Don't let other people come in there, Venezuelans and people from St. Lucia and Trinidad and all these other countries, and show that they love to work and they can work better than the Guyanese. You're better than that. Guyana is yours. You don't wait until there's an implosion of people from Venezuela and migrants there that form a sort of a voting bloc that may be loyal to Venezuela, or that shows that Guyanese are lazy people that don't like to work. We are better than that. So it's all up to you, right? I have many other things to attend to in New York City. I have many other battles to fight. I just want to end with this. May God bless you all. May He help you to see the wisdom. May He forgive all of those who have caused havoc in Guyana. And may He show us a more righteous and positive path to help in Guyana heal. Because there are international enemies that are focusing on us, who want to take away 2/3 of our land. Whilst we're fighting over chum change, they're looking for 2/3 of Guyana with all the oil wealth. And when we slip, they will pounce. So unite and strengthen each other. Look out for each other. Stop the rioting. Stop the fear mongering. Stop the racial mongering, the strife. Stop throwing acid on little kids and on others, and burning down buildings and looting and stuff like that. This has no connection to the Adrianna Younge case. It is brutal. And it puts you in a very bad light, the entire country. So with that, I wish you all the best. I will bring updates. Let the investigation continue. We will see where the evidence and the tests and the forensic analysis lead us, scientifically and otherwise. And then we'll have to reconcile it at a point in time as to whether charges will be brought. Right now, the forensics that have been issued by the pathologists are suggesting that this was not murder. I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but I have a duty to say it. It may be other civil crimes or civil lawsuits or other lesser crimes with tampering with a dead body or interfere with a corpse and malicious imprisonment, false imprisonment, locking up people, locking them in a hotel. If police did that, then it will be false imprisonment. That is also a crime and a civil action. We have to study the case in greater detail as it unfolds. But that's my contribution so far. Following up on yesterday, I want to put a record straight that I've had to clarify some of the issues I raised and some of what was said. And with that, this is Albert Baldeo, elected in Little Guyana, the largest diaspora outside of Guyana, called Richmond Hill, Ozone Park, Jamaica, South Ozone Park. And I wish you well and Godspeed, and maybe continue to prosper in Guyana, and may we continue to fly the golden arrowhead, high. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. This is the Honorable Albert Baldeo, District Leader, signing off today. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all. Bye-bye.